Before you take another step in this land, you need to understand where you are. You're not just visiting another country. You're standing in the most fought over, prayed over, and argued over piece of land in human history. People cross continents just to get here. Some kissed the ground when they arrived. Others dreamed their entire lives of seeing it and never made it. And yet, you're here. So ask yourself, what is this place? Because Jewish tradition makes a claim that sounds almost impossible. This spot is where the world began. Not symbolically, not spiritually, literally. Right here in Jerusalem, at the place where the temple once stood. There's a stone known as the foundation stone. From that point, the world was created. Now, if that were true, wouldn't you expect the place to feel different? Because it doesn't stop there. The story of humanity begins here too. Adam brought an offering to God in this place. Shem, the son of Noah, made one here too. And Abraham stood here ready to give up everything. This is not just history. This is the birthplace of belief itself. This is where humanity first recognized one God. And the people who shaped morality as we know it walked right here. But then that raises a problem, because if this place is holy, how are you supposed to act here? When Moses stood before the burning bush, God told him, "Remove your shoes, because the ground you're standing on is holy." That wasn't just about shoes. It meant leave behind whatever doesn't belong in a holy place. The way you act, the way you speak, even the way you think. Now, look around. Not everyone lives here with that awareness anymore. Routine does that. It dulls things. But you don't have that excuse. You're seeing this place for the first time. So don't miss it. Because everything about this land is strange. Let me ask you something. Why this land? Why have so many nations fought over this exact piece of land? Why do religions from across the world build here, even when the most of their followers are living somewhere else? This doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. Not in Mecca and not in Vatican. Only here. But then, look at where it is. This tiny strip of land sits between continents connecting Asia, Africa, and Europe. Empires rose and fell around it, and somehow everything keeps coming back here. Now, here's where it gets even harder to ignore, because thousands of years ago, people started making predictions about this place. Not vague ideas, specific claims. And one of them changes everything. And then something happens that makes no sense unless the prophets were right. The prophet Ezekiel said, "The Jewish people will be exiled from this land, scattered across the world, and then the land itself would become desolate, dead, for nearly 2,000 years." Now, be honest. If you heard that prediction back then, you wouldn't believe it. A nation disappears, the land dies with it, and both come back? That doesn't happen. Except that's exactly what happened. Even Mark Twain, when visited the land about 150 years ago, described it as empty, almost lifeless. But the prophecy didn't end there. It said something even more impossible. The people would come back. The land would come back to life. And the desert would bloom once again. Look around. You're watching that happen right now. Cities rebuilt, life returning, a nation revived. And if that was the only prophecy, you could maybe call it coincidence. But it doesn't stop there. The prophet Zechariah said something almost unbelievable. He said Jerusalem would become a burden, a pressure point for the entire world. Think about that. This tiny city, and yet somehow global powers can't stop focusing on it. Every conflict, every headline, every negotiation, it keeps coming back here. Exactly like he said. And then there's Isaiah. He describes a future world where the world would turn to Jerusalem, not for war, but for truth. A time when people would come here to learn, to understand, to search for something deeper. Now, look at what's happening. Millions of people from every background coming here, watching this place, trying to understand it, even if they can't explain why. And then there's something even stranger. A prophecy no one would ever expect. A dead language coming back to life. For nearly 2,000 years, Hebrew wasn't spoken in the streets, only in prayer and in books. And then, suddenly, it came back. Children speak it, families live it. A nation was rebuilt with this language. That has never happened before. Not once. And then one more thing happens. The ingathering. The idea that Jews would return from every corner of the world, different cultures, different languages, and become one people again in this land. Look around. That's not an idea. That's reality. And now ask yourself again, what is this place? Because when you walk through Jerusalem, you're not just walking through an ancient city. You're walking through something that shouldn't still exist. A city destroyed and rebuilt again and again. And still, it's standing. That's why it's called eternal. Here, the past and the future exist at the same time. This is the city of King David, of the prophets, of visions about the end of days. A time when the world will change. When nations will come here, not to fight, but to learn. When weapons will be turned into tools, and war will finally end. And if you want to feel all of this in one moment, go stand by the Western Wall. A single wall that survived everything. Empires tried to erase this place, erase its people. They failed. The wall is still standing, and it represents something very simple but powerful. This story isn't over. So, as you walk through this land, don't just see it, feel it, because you're not just visiting history. You're standing right in the middle of it. And that brings us to today. We've returned to the land, and the land has been rebuilt. Tam uru'u, taste and you will feel. This message was prepared for people who are visiting Israel for the first time. Now that the skies are open, people suddenly have an opportunity to once again return to their homeland. So please join me as we think about what we can do to hasten the final redemption of all of humanity, where all knees bow to God. Everybody knows the one God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob has chosen the Jewish people to dwell in this land, and through the ingathering, the world will witness the miracles that take place and accept God by way of the miracles. You see, God could easily just convince everybody of the Jews' righteousness. But just like Pharaoh needed to send the Jews out, they needed to, the rest of the world, it's important to God that the entire world understands a peaceful, loving God, as in the 7 Noahide laws. Thank you for watching. Have a great day. Yom Ha'atzmaut Sameach, I think that's what you say. And if you like this video, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Shalom from just outside Jerusalem.